What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We are talking Big 12 football. We're doing power rankings. And yes, we are getting to your mailbag questions. Drop them in right now. If you are watching live, we'll get to your Q&A here on the show. We'll start off with the power rankings. And all we want you to do is make sure you are subscribed if you're a Big 12 or a college football fan. We've got a couple weeks left, and then it's playoff time. Let's go. And, of course, like the video as well. That makes a big difference on the podcast. A 5-star rating and review is always appreciated. I'll start off with the power rankings this week in the Big 12. We'll count them down from 16 to 1, and then we'll get to your questions for this week in the Big 12. Get them in right now on the chat. At number 16 in the power rankings, well, I'm keeping them down there. I had no choice. It's Oklahoma State. They put up a fight against K-State, which says as much about K-State as it does Oklahoma State. There are reasons for optimism coming out of this last game against Kansas State, maybe. Zane Flores looked all right. Defense was okay. But 5 turnovers, that's going to do you in. So Oklahoma State stays at number 16 in the power rankings this week. At number 15, they were on a bye. Colorado stays in that spot as well. And at this point, if you're the Buffaloes, you are building towards 2026. See what Juju Lewis has at quarterback, and away we go. At number 14, the UCF Knights stay there as well. They went on the road, got blasted by Texas Tech. Now, listen, that's happened to every team that has gone to Lubbock this season. There's not a lot to take away from this one for the Knights, but if you want to reach a bowl game, you now need to win out against Oklahoma State at home, and then against BYU. That is no easy task. At number 13, it is West Virginia. I thought about sliding them up. They gave Arizona State a run for their money, but they lost the game. So I couldn't really bump them up over the team that's number 12. You'll find out in a second because they've lost a head-to-head against the team at number 12. But listen, this program is playing better football every week. If you are a West Virginia fan, you've got to be optimistic about where the program's trending. I know you lost the game against Arizona State. You're down double digits. You come back, you take a lead on the road, tough environment, and then you lose. I mean, that happens when you're going through these growing pains. But there are many positive signs coming out of that game for the Mountaineers, and Saturday was another example of that, but I'm keeping them at 13 in the power rankings. At number 12, KU. They had a bye week. Once again, I thought about moving West Virginia up, but KU does have the head-to-head. That being said, I believe KU plays West Virginia today. It's a much different game than it was in September when KU won by 25 points. At number 11, the Baylor Bears. Whew. Got blasted at home by Utah, and the defense gave up nearly 400 rushing yards. A team that was picked by many in the preseason to win the Big 12 is now fighting to get to a mediocre bowl game. They are 11 this week. At number 10, TCU sliding down one spot after their 30-point blowout loss in Provo on Saturday. I thought they might want to get that sour taste from a blown fourth quarter against Iowa State out of their mouths. They didn't want to do it. Instead, whatever that taste is in their mouth got a lot worse after they went to BYU and got blasted. Now, you wonder about Sonny Dykes and Dave Aranda, how hot these seats might be getting. Aranda's has got to be hotter than Sonny's at this point, but still, this is now going to be a third straight season of not meeting expectations in Fort Worth. At number 9, Kansas State, coming off the bye week. Looked like they were still stuck in the bye week the way they played against Oklahoma State on Saturday, but for Chris Kleiman, it's his first win in Stillwater. He was 0-3 before this game on Saturday. And, I'm not going to crush him, mostly because of what happened with the teams below him. I can only move him down one slot in those power rankings this week. Next up, let's get to the Iowa State Cyclones. They are number 8 in the power rankings this week. So Iowa State was on a bye. And, of course, they just had a win over TCU to snap that 4-game slide. Cyclones have KU and Oklahoma State to wrap up their season in a pair of old-school Big 12 showdowns. We'll see how it plays out. Number 7 on those power rankings, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Last week, they were number 4. They fall to number 7. They've now lost 2 in a row. Now, last year, they lost 5 in a row to end the season. The Bearcats could drop 4 in a row if they aren't careful. They play BYU and then TCU. Obviously, one is more winnable than the other, but neither game is a layup for Cincinnati. Their schedule has toughened up, and now they have to prove they can handle it. If not, this year is going to end with the exact same conversation we had last year. They beat the easy teams. When they go up against the tough teams in the Big 12, they can't beat them. Outside of the Iowa State game, if they have a disastrous final month here, that's going to be the narrative. And it will be a well-deserved narrative as well. At number 6, up from number 10, Arizona jumping 4 spots. They went on the road, tough environment, and they beat Cincinnati. They are 7-3. And Brent Brennan has this top-ranked pass defense continuing to gain confidence and play nasty. This team is fun to watch. In many ways, like Texas Tech, it's not your run-of-the-mill traditional Arizona team where there's a lot of offense and no defense. That is not what this team is at all. And it's a lot of fun to watch. So I'm loving every second of it. If you're an Arizona fan, I got to imagine that you are as well. It's good stuff all around. At number 5, we've got the Houston Cougars coming in at number 5 this week. They're coming off a bye. And I thought about moving them down. I considered it. But then I was like, nah, not going to do it. Keeping them right there at number 5. I think that is where they belong, especially since they still have the head-to-head against Arizona. At number 4, it's Arizona State. I moved them up from number 6 following their win over West Virginia, and it's how this team won that really impressed me the most, all right? It's how they did it, how they went about their business getting that victory, and when you're Jeff Sims and you're throwing for 200, rushing for 80, this team did not lose any of its fight after they lost Sam Levitt. The defensive front was stout as well. They're not quitting, and that is a testament to Kenny Dillingham and the young men on this team. At number 3 in those power rankings, the Utah Utes. They were there last week. I kept them at number 3. They go to Waco. They crush Baylor 55-28. 380 rushing yards in this game as they still are in contention for a berth in the college football playoff. At number 2, it's BYU. They were there last week in that 2-hole. BYU bouncing back from its first loss of the season with a 30-point win over TCU at home. That's exactly what they needed. It's a college football playoff caliber team when they're firing on all cylinders, and that was clearly on display Saturday night against the Horned Frogs. And at number 1, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The Red Raiders reached the 10-win mark for the first time since 2008 under Mike Leach. They now have a bye week, and they are a win against West Virginia away from making the Big 12 championship game. This was an amazing fall in Lubbock. Texas Tech was 7-0 at the Jones with an average margin of victory of 37 points. In 4 conference home wins, their average margin of victory was 32 points. Absolute dominance from Texas Tech at home this season. There you have it. Those are the Big 12 football power rankings. Let me run down those Big 12 football power rankings one more time, top to bottom. Texas Tech at 1. At 2, it's BYU. At 3, it's Utah. Arizona State's number 4. Houston, number 5. Arizona, number 6. Cincinnati comes in at 7. Iowa State is 8. K-State is 9. TCU at 10. At number 11, it's Baylor. At 12, the Kansas Jayhawks. Number 13, West Virginia. Number 14, UCF. Number 15, Colorado. And number 16, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Those are your Big 12 football power rankings going into Week 13. Now, shall we get to your mailbag on the show? You want to do that and have some fun? What do you say? You guys good with that? All right, let's do it. Let's do it here on the show. Let's start off on Facebook here. Brian asks, Pete, who is your Big 12 player of the year? I am all in on Jacob Rodriguez the linebacker for Texas Tech, as my Big 12 Player of the Year. He should be a Heisman finalist. He has been absolutely dominant for this team for what is statistically one of the best defenses in the entire country. It is a no-brainer to me. There is not anybody else that I look at and say, hey, well, it's got to be this person, it's got to be that person. I mean, you typically look for one of the better players on one of the better teams, right? And I know we all want to look at the quarterback and say, well, what about? No. It's Jacob Rodriguez. What he has done has been absolutely amazing. In tackles, he's third in the Big 12. When it comes to tackles for loss, he's top 10 in the Big 12. You look at what he does when it comes to turnovers, interceptions, forced fumbles. He is leading the way. He is absolutely amazing in almost every one of these categories, forcing 7 fumbles this season. That is 4 more than anybody else in the Big 12 Conference. That's how good this guy has been. He's 4th in the Big 12 in interceptions. He just does it all for that defense, and it is a heck of a lot of fun to watch. So give me Jacob Rodriguez, Texas Tech linebacker, as my Big 12 Player of the Year. That's who I've got. That's who I would vote for today. And barring something crazy happening down the home stretch here, I mean, I don't know who else I could even make the case for. That's how good this guy has been. I mean, you could look at players like Bear Bachmeier, BYU quarterback. You could look at someone like Cameron Dickey, running back for Texas Tech. LJ Martin for BYU would come up there. Brendan Sorsby, maybe, Cincinnati quarterback, although he didn't have a great game here on Saturday. But I think it's clear as day. It's Jacob Rodriguez, and I don't think it's all that close. All right, let's see here. Corey says, Pete, how confident are you the Big 12 can get 2 teams into the college football playoff? Not as confident as I was last week. Oklahoma beating Alabama means the SEC may have just gotten another spot in the college football playoff. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Please like the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I am more concerned than I was a week ago. The Big 12 champ is going to get in, obviously. That second team could be tricky because here's how it could likely play out. Let's say Texas Tech wins the Big 12, right? They win the championship game. If they blow out, let's say BYU, the favorite right now to get there, the committee is going to say, well, BYU got blown out twice against their best competition. Are they really a playoff team? And they also beat Utah head-to-head, so what does that tell us? There would be a great excuse to leave out potentially both of those teams from the Big 12 conversation and from the college football conversation. So that's my fear. If BYU gets blown out by Tech and BYU has the head-to-head over Utah, there would be a great excuse to leave both of those teams out and justify, obviously, Notre Dame, who's probably going to be in now after they beat Pitt. You'll have an extra SEC team potentially in the mix as well. You know that still Alabama's going to be in, I bet you, and Oklahoma's going to be in. And, heck, you may have a 3-loss team like Texas get in there. I don't know. But we know they're going to jam in 5 SEC teams. Then you're talking about maybe 3 Big Tens. Then you're going to a Notre Dame. You're going to a Big 12 champ. You're going to a group of 5, and then you got room for maybe one more. And hopefully that's the Big 12. But I can't sit here and guarantee you that's going to be the Big 12. So my confidence on a scale of 0 to 10 is probably a 5. But, you know, historically, I'm also used to being disappointed by the College Football Playoff Committee. Quick story and historical note. This show, I know many of you have come into the show over the last couple of years. I started this website and all of Heartland College Sports in 2014. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a laptop. I had a website. I had a small podcast, and that was it. And in 2014, what happened? You had TCU, number 3 in the college football playoff rankings, going into the final week of the season. They beat Iowa State 55-3, and they end up going to number 6. And since then, I have been jaded. Since then, I have not trusted the committee, and I will never believe they'll do right by the Big 12. And maybe that's wrong of me, but it's like being a jilted ex. You get burnt early on, you get burnt too many times, and you feel like you know how it's going to play out. So I'm not going to sit here and believe the Big 12 is going to get the benefit of the doubt when all is said and done, especially if the most likely scenario plays out the way it does, which is a Tech BYU rematch with Utah on the outside looking in. I know Cincinnati fans are saying, what about us? We're still in the mix, and so are technically Arizona State fans. I get it. I'm just giving you the most likely scenario. Okay? If you want to go down the road of Texas Tech somehow plays Arizona State gets its way in with some upsets along the way, or Cincinnati, then the best case scenario is if Texas Tech blows out that team, Utah, as a 2-loss team not in the championship game, could potentially find its way into the college football playoff. Or maybe Utah ends up getting into the Big 12 championship game. That scenario still does exist, but it's much less likely because of the head-to-head against BYU. So there are different scenarios out there, but none of them are ideal for the Big 12 based on how the last week and a half or so has gone. OU beating Alabama was a big problem for the Big 12, and that is something we have to readily admit and acknowledge, and then we'll see how it plays out with the rankings on Tuesday night. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. It is great to have you here. Get your mailbag questions in right now as you're watching us live on the show. Let's see. Steven says, do you feel like Utah will be left out of the college football playoff? Well, I do. But there is a world, and this is crazy, but there is a world, and this is going to drive BYU fans nuts. But if Texas Tech plays BYU in the Big 12 championship game, and BYU gets slaughtered, I could see the committee saying, you know what? Utah lost on the road in a very tough rivalry setting by 3 points. All the metrics suggest that Utah is the better 2-loss team than BYU. I'm not saying this is right. I don't like this scenario. I'm just telling you the scenario does exist. And it exists because of how the sport has trended away from mattering or deciding these things based on what actually happens on the field. So I don't like this scenario where you take away from the games on the field. But if it plays out where BYU, let's say, loses to Tech 45-10 in the Big 12 championship game, and there's a spot up for grabs, I could see the committee, based on some of the advanced analytics, giving it to Utah. And then the conversation will be this. What do you do with these conference championship games? Are they completely worthless? If playing in them actually hurts a team like BYU under this made-up scenario. And that's a conversation that I guarantee you is going to be had if it plays out the way that it could. What's the point? And I do believe the conference championship games will eventually go by the wayside. I think they're eventually going to be gone. But not yet. But how this season plays out may help expedite that process. So just something to watch. If they keep expanding the playoff, I could see championship weekend absolutely going away. There's no doubt about it in my mind. So be sure to join us. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Good question, though, Steven. That's good stuff there by you. Get those questions in right now on the show as you're joining us here on Heartland College Sports. I'm Pete Mundo. We cover the Big 12. We talk everything going on across the league. Let me see what you've got here on some of the Facebook commentary as well. We are on X. We are also, of course, streaming right now on YouTube. PL84 says, I want Arizona State as a Texas Tech fan in the Big 12 championship game. Please, please, please. Why? I'm just curious. I mean, do you want to beat the defending champion, or is there another reason for that? I don't know the answer. I'm asking you. So I don't see, if I'm a Tech fan, I don't really care who I'm playing. Because if you win the game, you're going to the college football playoff. Heck, if you lose the game, you're going to a college football playoff. But do I think we're going to a 16-team college football playoff, as David asks here? I do believe that's where we're trending. It's a matter of when. We know the 12-team playoff is in for this year. We could get the 16 playoff as soon as 2026. But I do believe that the 16-team playoff is coming. There's no doubt about it in my mind. The question is, how do you break it down? Do you guarantee bids or not? I'm not a fan of guaranteed bids. I don't believe the Big 12 should go along with guaranteed bids, but that is absolutely where this thing is trending. All right? John says, what are the chances Tech gets into the top 4 and gets a bye? Good question. Let me see here. I want to take a look at things. I actually think it's starting to look pretty good. The odds that the Big 12 winner, if it's Texas Tech, ends up getting a bye. So, I mean, just look at the lay of the land right now. The Big 12 is going to have a champion, Ohio State versus Indiana, let's say. The SEC is going to have a champion, some combination of Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss. You know, Oregon's sitting there with Texas Tech, tied for number 6 in the country. Oregon might be able to figure out a way into the Big Ten championship game. Unlikely, but possible. So Tech is going to be able to jump some of these teams because they'll have lost, right? Unless Ohio State and Indiana are both undefeated, and then there's a field goal game and they keep them both in the top 4, and same thing with the SEC. But, you know, if Texas Tech wins out and they do it in dominant fashion, I think they could eke into that number 4 spot. But, man, gosh, what I would pay to see a college football playoff game on campus in Lubbock. I know you'd probably take the bye if you're a Texas Tech fan. All right? I know you probably would. And I know it'd be big, too, for Barron Morton, get some rest, get to the quarterfinals, and then you go to the neutral site. But, wow. The scene in Lubbock for a college football playoff game, and because of how they're seeding it based on, you know, they're not giving the top 4 seeds to conference champions. They're just doing it based on the overall rankings. So if Tech is number 5, they would probably take on the group of 5 team at number 12. That's how they would set this thing up. So they would have a relatively easy opponent in that first round, and you would get the scene in Lubbock for a college football playoff, which would be tremendous. But if you're Joe McGuire, if you're Texas Tech, if you're the Big 12, getting that bye is also incredibly valuable and something you should want. So I would lean towards wanting the bye. I think they can get into that number 4 slot if they dominate West Virginia and then crush their opponent in the Big 12 championship, and then things break right in the Big 10 and the SEC. It's very possible they get 4, but if not, they'll be there at 5. And I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'll be one. Part of me wonders if they want Texas Tech to have a home game in Lubbock because of how wild a season it's been for that fan base and how much attention Texas Tech is getting. Call me crazy, all right? But I wouldn't be shocked by that one bit. I know many of you feel the same way as well. All right, what else? Steven says, I don't think any ACC team should make it. The ACC's bad. I agree. Let's not forget, Baylor and TCU have wins over SMU. Let's not forget the Big 12 is 6-1 against the ACC this year. So there you go. Auto Raider, you're 0 for 4 in your last games picking against Tech. They're 10-1 against the spread this year. You are right. I'm getting slaughtered recently on Tech. So if you recall, this is why I love the season. I was all in on Tech. I bet Tech early in the year to cover against Utah, to cover against Houston, to cover against Kansas, to cover against Arizona State. I was on a heater. I picked them all 4 weeks. They went 3-1. The only time they didn't cover was against Arizona State. And then I picked against them. Oklahoma State, you're right. I went Oklahoma State plus like 37. Came up short. I went K-State plus the whatever it was. I went BYU plus the 10. I went UCF plus the 24. I'm now 0 for 4 the last 4 weeks betting Texas Tech. That is true. So I rode them hard early. the Arizona State game scared me off. I overreacted, and now I'm 0 for 4 betting Tech. But I will say this. I was 4-2 in my picks this past week. So I just want to make sure I don't mind talking about my record for Texas Tech. I'll take the heat on it. But I also want to note that my record in week 12 was 4-2 against the spread. So we had a good week. Missed out on Tech. And the other one I missed out on was Utah Baylor. I took Baylor on the points. Shame on me. But I hit BYU -3.5. I hit Arizona +6 against Cincinnati. I hit Oklahoma State +20 against K-State. And I hit West Virginia +10 against Arizona State. So hit those 4 and then missed on Tech, UCF, and Utah Baylor. So I'm good getting ribbed on. I can take it. It's all good. No problem with me. Mike says, Pete, didn't all the teams that had a bye last season in the playoff lose? No. Well, Arizona State lost. They had a bye. But remember, I'd have to go back and look. It was a different setup because, remember, the champions got the byes. They had the 4 highest-ranked conference champions get the bye. So Arizona State was 4. They really shouldn't have been 4. They lose to Texas. So you're right. And that's part of the reason they changed the way the rankings were done. So you might be right about that, Mike. It was a combination of teams having hot hands and the way they did the rankings last year. So you're right about that. In terms of there was some, I got to go back and look, but certainly Arizona State had the bye and then lost to Texas in that quarterfinal game. But more importantly, they were doing that to try to preserve the conference championship games. And then what happened is they realized, well, this is totally unfair. And they're not wrong with that. But now they've diluted the Big 12 and all the other conference championship games, which were, so easy to get into last year. The SEC championship game was like, get-in price was like $15. Same thing with the Big 12. It was a joke, an absolute joke. Pete, do you think Utah's better now than when they lost to Tech week 4 or 5? Yes. I don't think it would be a 25-point game if they play in the Big 12 championship game. Doesn't mean they'll win. Doesn't mean they'll lose by a field goal. But I do believe Utah's getting better. And the Bird-Ficklin thing is fascinating to me. As I said on the Sunday reaction show, there's a little bit of Chris Leak, Tim Tebow going on there between Devin Dampier and Bird-Ficklin. I'm just intrigued by it. And I do think you got to keep building a package for Ficklin for the back half of the season or back end of the season because he's just that good. He's that explosive with that offensive line. Man, fantastic. Guys, thank you, as always, for being a part of the show. All I ask for you is to, if you want to be a super fan, hit that super thanks below the video on YouTube. Drop us a 5-star rating and review on the podcast. We're pushing 900 reviews on the podcast. Take 30 seconds out. That's all we ask of you. And make sure you're subscribed as well. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon. Go Big 12. It's week 13, baby.